So, Tiffany, thank you for being here. We have been starting all of the session speakers just with, if you could provide a brief introduction, your background, how did you hear about KGI, and kind of, we'll stop there and then we'll go on.
Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Tiffany Nelson. I am currently working at Gilead as a quality assurance specialist. I'm a deviation investigator. I started my pharma career in 2010 at Amgen, and I found out about KGI while I was trying to go to grad school to be a marriage and family therapist, which is a very different field. It's a very different life. But I have a BA in human development, and I have a strong passion for people. And I thought, I'm going to go into counseling. And one of my mentors, Dennis Fenton, was like, no, you're not going to do that. Here's a better path for you. And that was really meaningful to me. Dennis has known me since I was like 12. So it was really helpful for him to understand who I am as an individual. I have a passion for people, but I also have a passion for science. And a way to bridge that was to come to KGI. So I came to KGI in 2012. I graduated in 2014, and I've been down here in the Inland Empire ever since. That's me in a nutshell.
Thank you, Tiffany. And then kind of going off of that, how would you say that your passion for people that you just, said that you have such a strong affinity towards translate into the work you're doing now? And then if you can also just explain like your title and how that all fits together.
For sure. So I am a quality assurance investigator. When things go wrong in my manufacturing facility, I work for Gilead in Laverne and San Dimas. We manufacture Ambizome, it's an antifungal, but we also package most of all of the renal HIV medications that are used in North America. So when things go wrong in our plant, on our packaging line, I investigate. So backing up, I have a huge passion for people. It's very important to me that the work that I do has an impact on other people. I am not very scientifically minded. That's not where my strengths lie. So for me to be in this industry, I needed to find something that also played to my strengths, my strength for people. So in order to understand what goes wrong on a manufacturing floor, you have to understand the human aspect. You can't out-engineer people until we are 100% robotic, and that's just not a thing that's in the horizon. It might sound like something that could happen pretty soon, but it really, in all honesty, will not. So in order to understand what's going on, we have to understand how we interact with machinery, how we interact with materials, how we interact with each other, and how that impacts our patients at the end of the day. So actually not so. Yes, that's it.
And so you kind of talked a little bit about it, but can you tell us what, quality assurance is, like what your perception of it was, and did that match with what you're actually doing, or was it completely off? And, being in this role, you learn different things as to kind of what it is.
Right. So when I started, my understanding of quality control and quality assurance were the same, and that at different companies can be the same. But for me right now, Gilead, it is not. Quality control is the control of the actual drug product that you are making. It's ensuring that your drug meets the specification that you have filed with the agency. Quality assurance is understanding the purity and safety of all aspects of your product. So that's from raw materials that come in all the way to packaged goods that ship out. And then that is also the quality assurance of the final product that gets to the patient.
So I'm going to stop right there. If anyone has any kind of clarifying questions about what Tiffany just said on quality assurance or quality control. So how long have you been at Gilead again? And then can you kind of talk about how you would classify that company culture?
Sure. So I've been with Gilead for 4 years. I started out as a contractor for a year and a half, and I just, I guess it's like 4.5 years really, but so contractor for a year and a half, and then transitioned to a full-time employee officially 3 years ago in June. Our site is very interesting. So the corporate site for Gilead is in Foster City, and San Dimas is our oldest facility. It's 35 years old, and we just built Laverne. We broke ground in 2015, and we started commercial manufacturing in 2019. We are a small mom and pop on the cusp of corporate culture. So it's a very different kind of atmosphere. You're going to have people who have been in their roles forever, and you have people who are brand new to the industry or their role or our site. And so it's a neat little mixture of both. So you get all of that mentorship and also the time to shine. It's a really great opportunity, I think, to come to San Dimas and Laverne.
And I also want to ask the group if you all can type into the chat. You know, you've been doing the CBB series and hearing from different people. Out of what you've kind of learned, what is it that you're thinking of going into or would be most interested in kind of going into? And then while they're typing that in and answering, Tiffany, can you explain what maybe the benefits of being a contractor may be until kind of you're hired on or testing out the company or whatever that might look like? Or maybe there aren't no benefits. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a super interesting question. Most pharmaceuticals run lean, and so that means that they use both a mix of full-time employee and contractor and consultant work. I loved being a contractor. I thought it gave me a really unique insight into the company to understand if this was a culture that I wanted to be a part of, if this was a job that I could see myself doing for a while. Luckily I can, and I did, and it was great. I absolutely love working for Gilead. It's a really hard job, but most things in pharmaceuticals are, because you have that added pressure of actually providing patients with real products that can actually save their lives. And so you embody that a little bit, and that turns into your drive to continue to produce and be successful in your job. So I absolutely recommend, if you don't have the opportunity to go straight into a full-time employment role, to look for contractor or consultant role so that you understand a little bit more about your company before you jump full in.
Thank you. And you know, we have 1% technical project management. How would you say that your role, you know, connects to the different departments at Gilead, or what generally with your role to other departments and maybe other pharmaceutical companies? Like, how does that all play into the bigger picture?
Right. So let's start with our interactions with each department. So when a deviation occurs, if we don't follow procedure for one specific thing, we interact with that department. So that could be manufacturing, supply chain, technical services, quality control, and then we put together a functional area team and a failure investigation team and understand what happened, how this error occurred, and how we can fix it. So each investigation that I run has this team. We work together to understand what's going on and then implement CAPAs as needed as a result. We also interview not only just the individual involved, but also potentially a process subject matter expert to understand, is there a gap in the process that we're not seeing? Was this individual brand new? Have they been here for a really long time and there's just an improvement opportunity? There's a ton that goes into it. But also, per the FDA, you have 30 calendar days to complete your investigation. So you have to rely on your teammates to help you complete that. And that's not just an internal goal for myself or my department, but that's a metric that we report to the FDA.
So you said the word team, and that always reminds me of like TMPs, right? So what did you do for your TMP, and how did that, I guess, those skills or kind of that team management, team partnership play into you working with the team now?
Right. So my project was with Boehringer Ingelheim. We did a method transfer reduction. So method transfers in their lab were taking roughly 120 days, and we wanted to get it down to 45 days. At the end of the day, we got it down to 30 days, which was fantastic. And they really enjoyed it, which is great. During that process, we used the DMAIC model. So that's define, measure, oh my gosh, implement. Do I remember this? Nope. What is A? And then control. Sorry, I don't remember this. But it was very interesting. It was my first real dive into any kind of project management. I didn't take any project management courses in undergrad. I use project management every day, every single day in my current role, and it's fantastic. And you have all these tools, right? Like the DMAIC tool, your root cause analysis tools, but really at the end of the day, it's your management skills with people. Can you interact with someone? Can you see eye to eye at all different levels, right? So even like C-level executives are in a lot of my meetings. Can I get them to understand where I'm coming from, but then also help them understand where we can make a decision on a different level? And that's a hard skill to manage, but it's very interesting.
Yes, Beatrice.
Hi, so I'm Beatrice. I'm part of the CBB program. I had a question. You mentioned earlier that you do these investigations and you have to submit reports to the FDA. And it sounds like you're busy. And so my question is, with respect to Gilead, how many sites are you performing investigations for? And then I guess like typically like how many of these errors, or how many of these mistakes like actually get reported versus, it's something that can be handled internally. Do you know what I mean?
Right. So there is a process, right, for escalations that are reported to the agency. Not every issue is reported to the agency.
Okay.
We have an internal tracking system. We use a software. We upload all of our reports to that software. And then when the agency comes, they pull 2 years and then they ask us questions about those 2 years. Very rarely do we report everything to the FDA. There's a set limit, right? Of if this occurs, that's a notification. If this occurs, it's not a notification. We handle it internally.
Okay, that makes sense, because it's, it could be something mundane. Like that's the impression that I got. Like some incidences are just going to be mundane or personality issues versus like things that could be of concern to the patients. And then how many sites do you do these investigations for?
So I support 2 sites, Laverne and San Dimas. My desk is in San Dimas, but I go to Laverne often. Eventually, San Dimas will sunset and we will all be in Laverne.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I know, I'm excited.
Do you ever travel to Foster City?
I have not yet traveled to Foster City as a result of the pandemic. However, Foster City is accepting training in person again. So I'm hopeful to go up there and see everything. They have a beautiful facility. They have a pilot plant. They have a park. They have sushi in the cafeteria. I'm really excited about it. So the downside of being at a manufacturing site instead of a corporate site is that we don't get name recognition all the way up, right? We get all the way up recognition for the sites that's there. But at the end of the day, Daniel O'Day doesn't know who I am. If I was in Foster City, I could potentially run into him and then he potentially might know me, right? However, my site head definitely knows who I am. And we can grab dinner or grab lunch or head to the brewery, and that's totally fine. So there's those nuances you have to consider when you're thinking, where do I want to work?
So that actually, you kind of were describing a little bit of networking, right? Because that networking in person is much more, it sounds like more valuable than the Zoom meeting and the casual running into somebody at the coffee shop or the cafeteria or whatever it may be. So did you like, what would you say, or would you suggest to hone those networking skills, or kind of personally, I am an introvert, and so like I hate networking. Like it's like the last thing I would ever want to do in my life, but I realize how important it is. So what advice might you give myself or others that might be in the same boat?
Definitely. So I am an extrovert on the very other end of that scale. I want to know everyone. I want to know your life story. But that also, awesome to see you, Beatrice, that also comes with its own, I would say, pitfalls, right? Because it could be a little too much. So the one thing I would recommend for everyone, regardless of what scale, if you're comfortable, uncomfortable, is to just go out there and meet someone. Just have your elevator pitch, your 1-2 minutes. This is my name. This is what I do. It's great to meet you. Maybe a fun fact, depending on like where you're going to try this networking out, is really beneficial. I love the opportunity to work from home. I think it's really important, but I also really value face-to-face interaction. There's so much that we get done in a face-to-face than we do via Zoom. And now as we're going back into the office, right, you're going to have some companies that are like, yeah, let's everyone back, we're so pumped, and some that are like more flexible, and some that are just going to stay remote. So there's challenges and like successes there too, but highly recommend to, this is going to sound really terrible, but just do it. Just go. It's really uncomfortable. It's not fun for a lot of people. And just say, hey, hello, this is who I am. This is what I have to offer, and have that confidence in yourself.
So for me, and this leads into a question, I try and do networking within like groups or like themed groups. So KGI does have a book club, so I'll go to that because then we're talking about a common interest. You know, we also have a Jedi committee on campus, so I'm part of that and kind of talking with people there. So I'm like forced to get out of my virtual world, but I'm talking to other people. So along those lines, does Gilead have any kind of, you know, groups like that are kind of like part work, part social, like within the confines of the organization?
Yeah, we have a bunch. They're called employee resource groups. I am a member of every single one. Unfortunately, most of the activities occur in Foster City, but during the pandemic, they did a lot of awesome virtual programming, which is great. Get to meet people, get to understand a little bit more about what goes on in other places, which is always really exciting. But not every company is going to have an ERG. So I love that you guys have a book club. I love that. I absolutely love that. I didn't have a book club. I love that. But I mean, that's a great opportunity to try something new and something different, and to talk about outside of school things, just like you're going to talk about outside of work things when you're networking, right? Because we are people, and that's the biggest thing to remember, is that we are people and not machines. So hopefully that's a little bit like easy to bridge. I know at my smaller companies, we didn't have any social networking in that way. And I absolutely love being part of Gilead that has that opportunity.
So the book club is open. So just to let everybody know, it's open if you're interested. Last year we read Bad Blood, which is the book about the Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes, which reads like a thriller. I could not put it down. I read it in 2 days. It was amazing, but it's now Hulu miniseries too. So just to let you know. So we do a little pop science, but that way it's also kind of what's happening in the news. And there were different topics for the different books that we read, and we voted. So it's open. Keep checking on the website. They haven't announced anything for the new year yet, but it will be there. Everyone is invited. but so part of the thing with KGI is we have like a lot of acronyms, and you said ERG. Did you find culturally like it hard to figure out, what this insider language is, not just at Gilead, but like leaving KGI into your first role, like navigating what industry speak might be versus what you were kind of taught in the classroom?
I wouldn't say that it was like super difficult, but I will say that every company has a different way of doing things and has a different word for a different thing. So like, for instance, TrackWise is an enterprise system that is used for many quality records. We at Gilead call it G-Track. But when I was working at Baxter, it was TrackWise 8. So you're just going to have different things that come up in different ways. And you just have to be flexible, and then also be okay with asking questions, and then potentially feeling okay with being a little embarrassed if you use the wrong term so that you can learn from it. I know that I have a hard time walking around with egg on my face about terms or anything, honestly. And it's a moment of opportunity for growth for myself to just put myself out there and be like, I know it to be this term. Please tell me what the right term is.
Tiffany, I have another question for you. So since you're speaking about, challenges with respect to acronyms, going back to your role in quality assurance, what do you think is the most challenging aspect of your job, and why?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I'll start with what the most challenging thing was when I started, and then what it is now. So when I started, the most challenging thing was understanding the process itself. So each issue that I interact with is a different piece of the puzzle. So it takes probably like a year and a half, maybe 200 investigations to understand the full process from raw material to ship out. So that was challenging, especially because I started as a contractor who didn't have full access to everything, and then transitioned to a full-time employee who does. Right now, the most challenging part is understanding the complexities of how we decide what batches we save and what we reject based on the complexity of the issue itself. As you grow in this role, you go into different types of investigations. I have lab experience, but I am nowhere near QC analyst. And so when I do lab investigations, that is another opportunity of growth for me. And so each opportunity, well, really each case is a new opportunity for growth.
Thank you. And then I guess like along the same lines, and I'm sorry, just because I realize that I might have an interest in quality assurance. I'm still learning about all of the jobs and the biotech and pharmaceutical industry. But what would you say are some of the skills and attributes that a person in your role needs to be able to succeed?
For sure, you're going to need to be detail oriented. You're going to want to know what's happening. So it's not just wanting to be or like wanting to know every answer. It's understanding the big picture. So the forest for the trees, but the trees for the forest as well. It's networking, project management, time management, right? Because we have a 30-day mandated timeline in which to close each case, regardless of how many cases you have. So that's a challenging thing. But then also you're going to get pushback all the time from people who maybe don't see your side of it, or maybe you went down the wrong path and you didn't know, right? So you have to readjust and be flexible and adaptable.
Thank you.
For sure.
Anyone else can ask any questions as well too, because if not, I'm just going to keep asking questions. I would rather you yourselves ask the questions and interrupt me. So, because this is your opportunity to ask what you want to know. So really go for it.
Okay, well, I'll keep asking questions then.
Go for it.
What was your internship experience like? How many companies did you apply to? How did you narrow down kind of like the fields? Like this is I guess less with quality assurance in your current role, but like more your experience at KGI.
For sure. So I was an intern at Amgen. I applied to 13 different companies. I didn't really necessarily want to stay in California. I applied to all the quality assurance roles that looked really exciting. My specialty, I guess, concentration at the time was clinical and regulatory affairs. So I also wanted to go into potentially like CMC, this chemistry, manufacturing controls. I wanted to go into regulatory filings. And it's hard to find an internship that's more of a rotational program, or at least when I was a student, that was what the opportunity there was. I loved being at Amgen. It's in my hometown. I knew everyone there. It's great. I didn't have to move home, which was also kind of nice. My project was in international quality. And so we did a risk register for additional risks as we expanded into Latin America. And that was really interesting because when I think about quality assurance, especially at that time, I wasn't considering what risks to product after it left the facility might be. So it's really, really interesting for me. I highly recommended, well, I don't know what kind of projects we have right now, so I can't say I highly recommend you take one or the other, but I can say to put yourself out there and try something totally new and different, because you don't know, maybe it'll be amazing or maybe it'll be terrible, but at least you know.
And so then from your internship, like how did that, I guess, help you decide on the classes for your second year?
It didn't.
Because it sort of sounds like what your role at Amgen is similar but different, like very different from your current role. And so like how did your internship shape your second year?
It didn't. So when I was in KGI, we had very like kind of specific classes to take. There weren't a lot of elective opportunities. There wasn't a lot. I mean, you could do like, I guess I could have gone into like manufacturing that way, but I didn't really want to. So I followed the predefined course and had a blast. So it didn't really change anything. I know that when I left, I really wanted more project management, but we didn't have opportunities then. I think we have opportunities now. But it's also something you learn on the job too. So I don't feel like I was slighted in any way by not having that opportunity presented at the time.
Question in the chat for you. Let's see. How did you know that you wanted to be in quality assurance specifically, and what made other positions less appealing to you?
Okay, so I didn't know that I wanted to be in quality assurance until I got here to where I am right now at Gilead. So when I left school, it was a hard time to find a job outside of a rotational program. So I did a lot of consulting work. And I started in change management, and I was like, this is a little mundane. I wanted something a little bit more fast paced. And some change management can totally be really fast paced. But for me, where I was, it wasn't doing it for me. So then I went to medical device, and I thought that was very interesting, but there was no opportunity for full-time employment after my contract ended. So then I moved to another medical device company. And then I got married, and I was like, this is too far from like my life. Like, I don't want to do this. So then I found a small mom and pop CMO. They're in Chino Hills. It's called Pack Lab, and they make over-the-counter drugs. So sunscreen, that's a drug. Mouthwash, it's a drug. All these little things that we use day to day, we might not consider to be actual drug product, they are. And that was honestly one of the best jobs I ever had. I had a great mentor, and I did compliance. I was the compliance department. It's a tiny company. So I learned everything from internal audits, agency investigations, applying for medical device licensure, training, change management. I mean, everything within compliance in that department was a mix of regulatory and quality assurance. And then I was ready for the big time. I got a job here at Gilead as a contractor. I loved it and I stayed. And I do think that it's time for me to move on from a specific role, but I do not think it's time for me to move on from the company. And that's something you have to consider too, right? Like we go into school with all of these lovely ideas about what we want to be and where we think we're going to go. But sometimes life comes at you in a different way, right? And so you have to kind of fight for yourself and decide, okay, what do I really want? Do I really want to work forever and never see my family? Do I want to have a work-life balance? Do I want to go do research? Who knows?
When you were saying that kind of the quality like reports having to handle that in like 30 days, it made me wonder about your work-life balance, but it sounds like you have that now, even though things are very fast-paced and quick.
I do. I didn't during the pandemic. The pandemic was the most eye-opening thing that's ever happened to me professionally and personally in my whole life. So I am a self-proclaimed workaholic. I like to work, gives me purpose, makes me fill my day. I feel good when I work. But there is something as too much work, and there is something as an unhealthy work-life balance. And like the biggest lesson that I learned is that I have to advocate for myself. So yes, right now I have a great work-life balance because I fight for it. It's really easy to get wrapped up into work, especially when I have mandated timelines, and I can work 20 hours a day, and that's terrible. That's 4 hours of sleep. That's really only 2 hours of sleep if you're thinking about it. And it's not good for you. It's not good for anyone in your life. It's honestly not even good for the work that you put out because you're not rested enough. So once you understand like what your specific limits are, you just have to advocate for yourself for them. So it's really important to me personally to have that work-life balance, to get up when the sun is up and turn off my computer before the sun goes down. I mean, you know, timelines permitting. And you just have to really advocate for yourself, especially in this hybrid, virtual, in-person culture.
I have a question. You mentioned mentors. Do you have current mentors inside and outside of the company, and how did you identify them?
Sure. So I have both mentors inside and outside of the company. I have personal mentors and I have professional mentors. Gilead has a mentorship program, which is really good. They have two. They have one specifically for women in industry, pairs you with other women in industry, and then also just anyone kind of a thing. And I had a great experience with that. Really got me through the pandemic. A lot of things went down during the pandemic in my personal and professional life, and it was really lovely. So that was like professionally from work, but then also previous management that I've worked with I maintain them as mentors. They're lovely. They're always available via email or text. Sometimes we meet up for coffee. That's lovely. I'm a big proponent of personal growth. I think it's really important to understand who you are as an individual and then give yourself the grace to grow as you grow. So I like to grow that way, but I know that's not for everyone, and that's okay too.
Another question in chat for you. Let's see. More or less, how many hours are you working weekly, and how did you go about advocating for yourself for that work-life balance?
Okay, so I know, again, this is being recorded and this is my own personal experience. Just want to put that out there again. I work anywhere from 40 to 60 hours a week. I have a really great management team. We had a shakeup in our management when we started, honestly, like maybe 2 months before the pandemic started. And then we had to grow together. How do we move from fully on site to fully virtual within like, what, 2 days? I think is what we had. It was crazy. So with that comes a lot of trust, comes a lot of vulnerability that you might not get now or in a day-to-day kind of a thing, right? Because we're all going through something crazy together. But once my management understood who I was and I understood who they were, once I could prove that I could do what I needed to do in the timeline I provided them, it was fine. So I think that, I mean, I know that my specific job is very different from a lot of jobs, right? There's a lot that you can sign on at 9, be done at 4, and you're good to go, right? That's just not necessarily the job that I do. However, I think if you can provide evidence to support your want for, I don't know, maybe you want to work 7 to 4, and you want to do 4 days a week instead of 5 days a week, and you have that evidence and you provide it to your management and you give it a trial run and it works out, I think you can definitely advocate for yourself. But I also think that you need to be comfortable with hearing no, because sometimes it's going to happen and then you got to try again.
Anyone else have any questions?
Yes, I do. No surprises there, I guess. What about professional associations? You mentioned that, you know, it was great to have these professional mentorship opportunities within the company, but then it also like piqued my interest. How do you, I guess, like engage with other, you know, women in science outside of your company, you know, maybe on a related field? Are you a part of any professional organizations that are open to students, you know, joining as well?
So I just let it lapse. Gilead pays for some of them. And hold on. Yes, that is how you contact me via LinkedIn. But so there are opportunities. Most professional organizations take students at a discounted rate. You should definitely look into that. I know that I joined everything I could join when I was a student, like PDM. Nope, that's something else. PDA. There's an Orange County Regulatory Affairs body that was really great. Highly recommend that if you're looking into regulatory. There's a ton of opportunities there, and they also, because there is an office, an FDA office in Irvine, they have a lot of FDA interaction, which is helpful too. If that's a route you wanted to go. When I was in school, I thought I was going to go straight to the FDA. Did not happen. Applied 1,000 times, but it was a really good opportunity to network. So I recommend that. There's so many opportunities, and you just have to kind of decide what you're willing to budget for and what you're willing to actually commit to, right? Because I don't know about you guys, everybody on the call, but I sometimes have a hard time saying no. I have a hard time not taking an opportunity, even if my plate is full. And so you have to decide what your limit for opportunities are and what is right for you in this season and in this moment.
Question for you. Do you have other milestones in your life or career that you're pursuing?
Yes, I want to buy a house. It's very important to me. I'm obsessed with it. I don't know if that means I'm going to stay here in California because I live in Laverne and it's really expensive here. And I make a lot of good money, but I don't know if I make Laverne money. Okay, it's expensive. But that is something that I'm actively looking for right now. Personally, too, pre-pandemic, I was at like the fittest I've ever been in my whole life, and the pandemic happened. So I'm right back on that train, trying to get right back there. I miss just like hiking, right? I haven't gone hiking in forever, and those types of things. So that's what I am working on.
So I believe we're to wrap up in a few minutes. So do you have any kind of like, I wish when I had started KGI or my role, I wish I would have known this, or anything where you're just like, this is not related, but best practice of whatever, like, please, any advice that you think people should know is most welcome.
Yeah. So when I was a student, I took everything very, very, very seriously. And I missed out on a lot of connections with my peers. And I regret that a lot. I had a great group of girls that I lived with, and some great people on the ethics committee. I was ethics chair, co-chair with Franco. It was great and I loved it. But I missed out on a lot of that kind of social atmosphere because I took everything so seriously and I wasn't ready to like let everyone be their own person. And so I recommend, and I wish that I could go back and just calm down a little and just hang out and not worry about what's due tomorrow and not worry about, you know, things, summer internships when it's like October. Like, why? Just calm down, just chill. Anyway, that's what I recommend as a student. But then professionally, I wish that I had considered more than just the big names when I first got out of KGI. I thought I was going to go be some huge manager early on, had this huge chip on my shoulder. I was like, I'm so educated, I'm amazing, I'm going to get this great job. It's not how it works, right? And I was not ready to hear that from anyone. So if I can say something to y'all right now, it is that it's okay to hear no. It's okay to take a different route. It doesn't diminish your star. It doesn't diminish your ability to be amazing at the end of your career.
Thank you. And it actually, that kind of leads into Sarah's question, but it sounds like that mom and pop shop that you were talking about really set you up for success into what you're doing now. So kind of like, how did you find that company, or how would you recommend finding, I guess, the smaller companies that could, you know, you get in early, like really take off and really set yourself up for like longevity and the growth and all of that, building something from the ground up? Like, what would you recommend?
So for that mom and pop shop, I found them on Indeed, Indeed.com. It was great. They were tiny. It was like fantastic, right? But for a startup, you're going to want to go to, oh gosh, I don't even know if it still exists, but it was like, I don't know. I'll have to look into it and then I'll email Elizabeth and she can share it. But there are lists of things that are up and coming that are looking for people. So you have to keep your like ear to the ground if you're looking for like a startup that's ready to take off. But if you're just looking for an opportunity, anything, Indeed, Monster, Yahoo Jobs, like all of it, it's going to be there. You just have to decide, are you only wanting to get something from a Fortune 500 company, or are you willing to go smaller and learn a little bit there too?
Thank you. Any kind of last questions or anything else where anyone's like, oh, I need to get this in right before we head out because I've been holding on to it?
I was speaking with someone, they try to add you on LinkedIn and it doesn't allow them to send you a message. Is there something else you may recommend? Or do you want them to message you here?
Sure. Here, let me put, what will I even check? See, that's the other thing. Like sometimes I don't check all the things. But let me change my LinkedIn settings and then y'all can reach out to me there. I think you have to be like a connection for you to message me, but I'll update that after we're done with the call so that you guys can reach out if you have any questions. I don't always check it every day. So if it's super urgent, you might want to go to KGI admissions. But if there's anything I can help you with, let me know.
Yes, please check your LinkedIn today.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you everyone for being here. I included her LinkedIn link there as well. And any questions, you can reach out to KGI Admissions. My name's Kamika, but anyone in KGI can help you. Any final words? Anyone?
Thank you.
Perfect. I know, a lot of pressure, huh? Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Tiffany. Have a wonderful afternoon, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.